The screens went dark. The comments section froze. A digital fairy tale suddenly turned into a tragedy. And then, a full-blown internet scandal. Taylor Rousseau's husband got engaged, and her fans are absolutely devastated. Welcome to Starscope Report. Join Jordan and Jamie as they uncover Hollywood drama, music industry shakeups, and viral influencer scandals. From red carpet surprises to social media controversies, we dive deep into the stories behind the fame.
Yeah, and today's stack of sources is, well, it's heavy. We're looking at celebrity news timelines from Us Weekly. We're parsing through some deeply aggressive Reddit threads from her TikTok drama.
Those threads are intense.
Right, completely wild. And we're viewing all of this through the lens of this, brilliant academic thesis from Newcastle University, which is all about the psychology of digital mourning.
Yeah, so the mission for this deep dive is to really figure out the breaking point. We are trying to understand why an influencer's widow moving on didn't just cause, a few raised eyebrows, but triggered this massive, venomous backlash online. Because the internet did not just disapprove of this new engagement, they actively tried to dismantle it.
They really did. And to comprehend the scale of the backlash, you have to look at how much digital real estate that original relationship occupied. I mean, Taylor Rousseau, Grigg, and Cameron Grigg weren't just a couple who occasionally posted a photo together. They built an entire brand on their love story.
Yeah, by all metrics, it was this perfectly modern, highly curated digital fairy tale. You go back to 2021, and Taylor already has this massive online presence. She is commanding an audience of 1.3 million followers on TikTok alone, running her own successful boutiques, Joe Savage and Beauty.
She was totally a force.
She really was. And the story of how she met Cameron is practically out of a romantic comedy playbook. She's scrolling through her Instagram Explore page, sees Cameron's profile, points him out to her dad, notes that he's got abs and looks like a cowboy.
Seriously!
Right. And she just slides into his DMs.
And from that very first interaction, the audience was just invited in. They shared the early dating phase in 2021, the lakeside engagement in June 2022, the wedding in August 2023. The followers weren't just passively watching a broadcast.
No, they were super invested.
Exactly. They felt like active participants in a friend's life milestone. The barrier between creator and consumer was just remarkably thin.
Which makes the sudden drop-off so incredibly jarring. Just over a year after they get married, in October 2024, the unthinkable happens. Taylor tragically passes away at just 25 years old.
It was so sudden.
It was. When the cause of death was later revealed to be complications from asthma and Addison's disease, it just sent a shockwave through her community because it was so abrupt. You have this vibrant young woman building an empire one day, and she's gone the next.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, Addison's disease is a severe adrenal insufficiency. The body basically just stops producing enough cortisol and aldosterone hormones that are, crucial for managing stress and regulating blood pressure.
Right.
It is treatable, but if the body is put under extreme physical stress, perhaps compounded by a severe asthma attack, it can lead to a life-threatening adrenal crisis. It happens fast, and it just leaves the surviving family reeling.
And Cameron's public tribute at the time reflected a man who was completely shattered. He didn't just post some generic statement. He posted about the hyper-specific details of her life. Her endless shoe and boot collection, the rhinestones, the turquoise jewelry. He painted a picture of a vibrant spirit that was suddenly extinguished.
Yeah, she really did.
But if you think this is just a story about a grieving husband finding peace, hold on tight. Because what happened next turned a mourning fan base into an angry mob. And that's not even the wildest part.
No, it's not. So we move forward to April 2026. Us Weekly reports that Cameron Grigg is officially engaged again.
He proposes to a 25-year-old content creator named Kalli. It's a very sweet, intimate setup, a romantic picnic. And Cameron hides the proposal on a Post-it note tucked inside her Bible.
Yeah, and Kalli posts the announcement, calling Cameron the love she's waited her whole life for. Under normal circumstances, a young widower finding joy after an unimaginable loss is treated as a moment of healing.
You would think so, yeah.
But Taylor's fan base immediately mobilized, and the reaction on the irate TikTok drama subreddit was ferocious.
Wait, let's look at the math here. She passed away in late 2024. The engagement is announced in April 2026. That is roughly a year and a half later.
Right.
People are acting like he got engaged at the funeral. I struggle to see how that timeline alone justifies the vitriol. I mean, people process grief differently, and a year and a half for someone in their mid-20s to start living their life again doesn't seem mathematically insane to me.
Well, the timeline itself was just the kindling, really. The spark that actually ignited the outrage was visual. If you look at Kalli Kodette, the physical resemblance to Taylor is uncanny.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The fans didn't just see a new woman. They saw a visual echo of the woman they were still grieving. They felt actively betrayed by the optics.
And they were merciless about it, too. They started referring to Kalli as the Temu version of Taylor,
Yeah.
literally calling a real human being a cheap, knockoff product.
It's awful.
It is. That's when the rumor mill kicked into overdrive to justify their anger. Users started claiming that Cameron and Kalli had been together just 3 months after Taylor's death. You had commenters writing that he was moving on before Taylor even had a headstone.
It reveals a fascinating expectation that the public places on figures tied to tragedy, you know? The internet demands this perfectly linear, highly curated timeline of mourning. But human psychology just doesn't work that way.
Right.
People suffering profound losses often seek out familiarity, comfort, and routine. They might gravitate toward people who share traits with the person they lost, not as some malicious replacement, but as a trauma response seeking safety.
That makes total sense.
But the digital crowd, however, doesn't care about psychological nuance. They operate entirely on optics.
It feels like an audience watching a movie. You're in the theater, you are sobbing over this tragic, beautiful ending. And before the credits have even finished rolling, the studio releases the sequel, and it stars a recast version of the beloved lead actress.
That's a great analogy.
The audience hasn't even wiped their tears yet, and they're being told to invest in a new storyline. It disrupts their emotional processing.
That is exactly the friction point. The audience is still in the theater, refusing to leave their seats.
If you're loving these Hollywood twists, make sure you're subscribed. We've got even crazier stories ahead. Because I want to dig into why the audience is refusing to leave the theater. What is driving thousands of strangers to care this deeply about a relationship they are not a part of?
Well, the accusation shifting from Cameron to Kalli holds the answer. The fans on Reddit weren't just saying Cameron moved on too fast. They started accusing him of actively erasing Taylor's existence.
Erasing her? How?
They claimed he deleted his digital history with her. But more intensely, they accused Kalli of literally cosplaying as the lead influencer.
This is where the sleuthing gets uncomfortably granular. Like, these fans are claiming Kalli actually bought Taylor's iconic white boots from the Jew Savage boutique.
Yeah.
They are pulling up photos, comparing hemlines and accessories, claiming she dressed up exactly like Taylor for an event. Whether those claims are verified or just a classic case of internet confirmation bias, it created a dominant narrative.
Right. The narrative that Kalli isn't just dating Cameron, she is staging a hostile takeover of Taylor's life.
Which is wild.
It is. And to understand the ferocity of that narrative, we have to look at Sam and Liam Colbert's academic thesis from Newcastle University. He examines how the mourning of public figures occurs on social media.
Let me stop you before we get into the academic theory, because I want to try to understand the baseline feeling here. Imagine you are at work, and you see on your phone that your absolute favorite musician or actor suddenly died. You might genuinely cry in the bathroom. But you have to wipe your face and go back to your desk because you can't tell your boss, I need to go home, someone I have never met just passed away. You feel almost foolish for being that sad.
That feeling of having to hide your grief because society doesn't deem it valid is a documented psychological phenomenon. Colbert's thesis explores this through the concept of, well, he calls it disenfranchised mourning.
Disenfranchised mourning. Got it.
Yeah, in a parasocial relationship where you feel intimately connected to an influencer who doesn't know you exist, your grief when they die is incredibly real, but the real world dismisses it.
Right, because you didn't actually know them.
Exactly. If you lose a family member, society provides a framework, you know? You get time off work, people bring you meals, there are funerals. If your favorite TikToker dies, society essentially tells you to log off and get over it.
But I have to challenge this framing. Is what we are seeing on Reddit actually mourning? Or is disenfranchised mourning just a convenient academic term that anonymous internet users hide behind to justify cyberbullying a 25-year-old girl?
That's a fair question.
Because organizing a hate campaign against a widow's new fiancé doesn't look like grief to me. It looks like a mob finding an excuse to be toxic.
Well, it is both, and that is where the architecture of the internet plays a massive role. Because their grief is disenfranchised by the real world, fans retreat to platforms like Reddit to co-construct their mourning narratives. They find validation in the group.
Ah, I see.
But Colbert introduces a profound pivot here. In mourning public figures, audiences are often actually mourning a part of themselves. They are mourning the comfort the influencer brought them, the routine of watching their videos, the community they felt a part of.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
If the fans are really mourning themselves, does that mean they see Cameron's new engagement not as a betrayal of Taylor, but as a personal betrayal of them?
Exactly. When Camry moves on, it shatters the fans' curated narrative of the grieving widower. The fans use the platform vernacular of Reddit to collectively police how Cameron should behave, treating Taylor's memory as public property. Yeah, tremendous ownership. They spent years curating a specific mythos in their heads. When Taylor died, the fan community collectively assigned Cameron a role, the heartbroken, eternal widower. When Cameron announces an engagement to someone who visually echoes Taylor, he is breaking the script the fans wrote for him.
And the fans are using Reddit to punish him for breaking character. But how does that escalate from a few angry comments into an organized digital harassment campaign? What is happening on the platform itself to supercharge this?
This is where Colbert discusses that platform vernacular. Reddit doesn't just host conversations, it algorithmically curates consensus through upvotes and downvotes.
Right, so if I go into that subreddit and say, hey guys, Cameron lost his wife, maybe we should give him some grace and leave Tali alone, what happens to my comment?
Your comment is instantly downvoted into oblivion. It is hidden from view. The algorithm actively suppresses nuance and empathy because outrage drives higher engagement.
Of course it does.
The platform mechanics literally gamify the grief. The users who post the most aggressive side-by-side photo comparisons of Kalli and Taylor get flooded with upvotes, awards, and validation. The architecture of the site actively trains the community to become more extreme in policing Cameron's behavior.
Sounds so dark.
They treat Taylor's memory not as a human life to be respected, but as public property to be defended.
Later in the deep dive, we'll talk about the shocking twist nobody saw coming. The person who finally had to step in and stop the internet's madness.
Because that theoretical psychology always, eventually, collides with the real world. The users on Eartech Drama genuinely believed they were the heroes of this story. They thought they were the protectors of Taylor's legacy, guarding her memory against a widower who was moving too fast.
Right. In their minds, they're the good guys.
But they were entirely blind to the collateral damage they were inflicting on the people who actually loved Taylor offline.
Which takes us out of the academic theory and drops us into a devastating reality check. About 7 months ago, the noise on the TikTok gossip subreddit got so loud and the rumors became so vicious that Taylor's actual mother had to publicly intervene.
Yeah, just think about the weight of that action.
I can barely fathom it. You are a mother who has recently buried her 25-year-old daughter. You are navigating the heaviest, darkest grief imaginable. And instead of being allowed to mourn in peace, you have to log on to an internet forum to essentially parent a million strangers because they are throwing a digital tantrum over your son-in-law.
It's heartbreaking. Her message was a plea for basic humanity. She begged the community to leave Cameron and their family alone.
Yeah.
She explicitly pointed out the absurdity of thousands of strangers passing judgment when the vast majority of them had never lost a spouse. She had to remind an angry mob that everyone processes loss differently.
The part of her message that hit the hardest for me was the sheer exhaustion. She said the mistruths being spread by strangers were actively hurting Taylor's real-life family. We build these social media tools to connect with people, but they have completely insulated us from basic empathy. The fans were so wrapped up in their own parasocial grief that they couldn't see they were adding immense pain to a mother who was already carrying the ultimate burden.
It perfectly illustrates the most dangerous aspect of digital mourning, which is the flattening of the grief hierarchy.
What do you mean by the flattening of the hierarchy?
Well, in the physical world, there is a clear hierarchy of grief. The immediate family is at the center, their pain is paramount, and everyone else's role is to support them. But on the internet, all text is the same size.
Oh, wow.
A fan's angry Reddit post takes up the exact same amount of screen real estate as a grieving mother's desperate plea. The platform design tricks the parasocial fans into feeling that their anger is just as important, just as valid as the family's actual devastation.
And they weaponize the very things that were supposed to be memorials. In Colbert's thesis, doesn't he talk about how people use objects to mourn?
Yes, evocative objects. Normally, in digital mourning, an evocative object is like a shared video, a favorite quote, a digital candle lit in a comment section. It's meant to be a communal space of remembrance.
Right.
But the platform vernacular inverted that.
The fans took those evocative objects, the timeline of the relationship, the photos of the white boots, the old videos, and forged them into weapons. They stopped being tools for remembrance and started being ammunition to attack Cameron and Kalli.
Exactly. It's a stark sociological warning. Behind the screen, beneath the upvotes and the carefully constructed platform narratives, there are real human beings experiencing visceral, uncurated pain. The digital mob completely lost sight of the human element.
Stay tuned and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next, because deep dives like this genuinely force you to evaluate how you interact with the content on your own phone.
It really forces a confrontation with a very modern dilemma. It's a question that everyone who uses social media needs to seriously consider, long after the outrage over Cameron Grigg fades. When we eventually leave behind a digital footprint, thousands of photos, videos, written thoughts, and interactions, who does that footprint actually belong to?
That is the core of all of this, isn't it? When the screens finally go dark for us, what happens to the data we leave behind?
Right. Does an abandoned social media profile act as a permanent sedatic memorial, a quiet place for your real-world loved ones to visit in peace? Or, by the very nature of the internet's architecture, does your digital ghost become public property?
Such a tough question.
A blank canvas for millions of followers or even just strangers to project their own realities, their own unresolved grief, and their own rigid demands onto.
It takes us right back to the movie theater analogy. The screens went dark, the lead actress was gone. But the audience absolutely refused to leave the theater. They just hijacked the projector and started trying to write the script themselves, regardless of who got hurt in the process. It is a modern digital fairy tale that shows us just how incredibly toxic the waters of online grief can become when we forget the humanity of the people on the other side of the screen. You've been listening to Starscope Report, where Jordan and Jamie uncover the stories shaping Hollywood, music, and pop culture. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining.